You watch the Joe Rogan podcast.
Yeah, I watched the Joe Rogan podcast.
I'm assuming that you saw the Bob Lazar episode.
No.
The guy from Area 51.
Oh, yes. I didn't watch all of it, but I watched some clips.
Okay. So I watched the whole thing, and then I watched the...
Oh, my knees. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, your knees.
My knees been getting worse, too.
So I watched that podcast, and then I watched the documentary that he got on the podcast for, basically, or via. Mm-hmm. No, I mean, Joe apparently has been following this guy since the dawn of time.
I mean, it's Joe Rogan.
It's Joe Rogan.
And it's conspiracy type shit.
Yeah.
So
you saw the clips and everything. What were your thoughts on, if you could ignore the fact that the guy who did the documentary should have just never have been there in the first place because he never shut the fuck up. You watched that whole podcast.
Yeah.
He never made any sense. And unfortunately, every time he opened his mouth, he made Bob sound like less credible just by the nature of how he talked. It was like he wanted to suck Bob's dick live on air.
Yeah.
But he also never said anything that made any sense and just assumed that everyone knew everything about the story all the time. It was weird.
Well, I don't know if we're talking about the exact same dude, because I was watching one where he was talking about doing some work on some alien shit. Is this the same guy?
Bob Lazar. He was a pretty unassuming looking dude. Looked like he could have been an accountant.
Yeah,
talked relatively slow.
And there were these spheres that he was working on. Is this the same guy that we're talking about? And there was different spheres in different areas, and they had to like deconstruct it. And then somebody had died, and that's why he got called in. Are we thinking about a different dude, or
This might be somebody different.
Okay, because there was another guy that
Spheres
was on.
don't sound right to me.
Okay, there was another thing. So maybe I'm not thinking of the same episode that you were thinking of. I know there's been a lot of Area 51 talk recently because we're doing that big march thing that's going on.
Well, that's a meme, first of all, that turned into people actually trying to...
They're going to do it. I think they're going to do it. And the thing is if there are things at Area 51, they're just going to move it. Like, they're going to move those things.
Okay, so... let's tackle that, because that's obviously the one that more people would know about, is this Area 51 thing. So a Facebook group was started up where it was literally a joke. If you go to that Facebook group and you see it, it reads as a joke. It's a fucking meme. And then it snowballed to the point where enough people are involved that some people might actually be dumb enough to do this shit.
Oh, but if there's hundreds of thousands of people, or even 30, 40,000,
okay,
like what's the government going to do? Kill them all?
Yes. So here's the deal.
Yes.
Yes, that's exactly what's going to happen.
I don't think so.
In fact, the military already made a statement. So yes,
I don't think it would actually happen. You know how many news reporters and live television that would be down there?
How much the government just won't give a fuck? Let me be okay. First of all, let me just try and put this out here. Okay. Let's take this a step at a time. Step one, whether or not you're on board with alien shit, Area 51 is a major test bed, along with another site not too far away, for top secret aircraft testing. It has been for a very long time. It still is. When coincidentally, not long after Bob Lazar's incident where he got caught bringing his friends out to the highway during test flight days to show them what he had been working on, because obviously he had to be button-lipped and not say anything to anyone, and people started suspecting like wife is, fucking around on him and shit like that. It's just one of those. There's lots of people that are involved in top secret shit that can't tell anyone anything, and this is not infrequent. He decided to take them out there on a night that he knew they were testing some shit, went multiple nights, inevitably got caught. And then people started going up into the mountain range around the test site with high powered lenses, and still was like kilometers away, and seeing down onto the site via the mountains. And so inevitably, what happened was they pushed back the radius of where you could legally be around Area 51, and not insignificantly. I mean, they moved that marker back. So. Let's assume. First of all, here's the other thing that I don't know why people think would they'd see anything. Almost anything that would be worth seeing in Area 51 is either A, in a hangar that you are literally,
you're never getting in there.
40,000 people are not ever getting into it.
You're not getting in there.
2, underground.
Yes.
So even if
where there's probably more doors.
Yes. So let's assume that you even get a few people the whole way there, which is like kilometers in not particularly good terrain. without getting shot down from any number
Yeah.
of.
Snipers, they got waiting to take your ass out.
It's not, no, dude, this ain't snipers. This is Apache helicopters with guns that go brrrr because they fire fucking 7 rounds a second or 10 rounds a second, and it looks like a fucking like a rope is being fired
Pew,
out of a
pew,
gun.
pew, pew.
Okay, that's the kind of weapon.
Laser bullets.
They're not. If like hypothetically, if there were enough dumb people, first of all, this is not going to happen. It's not going to happen because the government is already. Anyone who's already said they're involved in this is now being tracked already. Everything that they're saying and doing online is being followed 150,000 fucking %. And then to top that off, this thing is still like a month or months away. Is giving the government the military all sorts of time to know exactly the window in time in which anything like this is going to happen. Then let's assume somehow, let's say 1,000 people, which I think is a stretch. If 1,000 people show up to go run into fucking Area 51,
You think 1,000 people going to die?
yes, yes,
Damn.
or at the very least, if it's 1,000 people, very least, a couple of them are dying, and the rest of them are getting caught.
Yeah.
They're getting netted or some shit. But dude, Area 51 is a place where you can get within a certain like limit of that outer edge, and dudes in trucks about 1,000 feet away will just show up.
Oh, yeah.
You take another step,
You're dead.
they get out of the truck. You go too much further, and there are signs that go, "You go past here, we can shoot you." And they're standing outside the truck, just like, "Give me a reason."
Yeah, bro.
Dude, I'm not joking. Look, think like people think the government's not just going to readily fucking mow down a bunch of people. If their options are have a whack of people run into a test bed for top secret military operations and aircraft testing and killing a few thousand fucking idiots and cleaning up the gene pool,
Yeah, they're
they're
going to clean up the gene pool.
every time.
Yeah. It'd just be so crazy because, it'll be filmed. Like, there'll be news all over the place. It'll be fucking, like, live streamed. It'll be a gong show. So I guess we'll see. We'll see if it goes down.
Dude, some people going to die.
I'll be watching.
And there's a certain, you have to think there's certainly a critical mass of people that people might buy tickets to go there, right? Then they get there, and then when they get there, they get cold feet and they go, "This is fucking stupid."
Yeah. They see dudes with big guns.
But if they get there and there's like 10,000 people, and let's say 2,000 of those 10,000 people start running, that's enough for like the mob mentality to kick in,
And they'll
then
just
they
go.
just forget everything and they just fucking go.
And just imagine. It would be a massacre, bro.
They could have one landmine out there, just fuck.
I didn't want to think about that because that would be just.
just
And dude, you know what? We can't underestimate the stupid. Like there
No, you
are,
can't.
dude. There will be. I'm telling you,
there's some stupid.
there will be people there. I'm just kind of hoping that there'll be like 10 people that are stupid enough to do it, and then they get scared or they're shot at their feet or some shit, or they just get mowed down. And then everybody else is like, "Nah, that's not cool," because it would be pretty fucking scary to see a big mob of people, like thousands of people, run, and then just that'd be game over.
Time to set some examples.
America.
Bro, if I'm the government, I'm not fucking around with that shit.
Oh well, you can't fuck around with that shit either, because you never know who's in that group too.
This is just it.
Yeah, you don't know. It could be people from using that against them.
Like Area 51 is the worst kept secret, but it's also for that reason that it's been so successful. It's like hiding in plain sight.
Yeah.
It's to the point where
Come
everyone
here if you can, bro.
Like everyone talks about it, and like the alien thing is always what takes over the discussion.
There ain't no aliens down
and
here.
so, but what it does is it makes people, you don't think about Area 51 as like some sort of test bed, or you think of it like a meme, like a fucking meme alien thing.
Yeah.
So this I watched the Bob Lazar episode for Joe Rogan for sure.
And then it just goes away. It's
Yeah.
like a little jingle, and that's it.
Yeah.
Weird.
So it's an interesting episode because almost everyone that talks about anything alien related, right, or extraterrestrial or whatever, they all look, sound, act like either that they're in it for fame, they want the recognition, they want but they also always sound fucking crazy, right? They sound like there's some screws loose going on upstairs, and nothing really that so many of them say have any credibility to it whatsoever. It's just complete hearsay. What makes Bob an interesting individual is that his stuff came out originally like 20 years ago on TV, where he after a series of basically. So here's a timeline. I guess a rough timeline is he gets selected.
Don't tell me too much because I'll go watch the podcast.
Right. Okay.
You
so
know, I'll just go listen. I'll just go listen.
Go
and everybody
listen to
else go listen to the podcast.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting one to listen to. Just skip every time the guy who did the documentary talks. Is that, I guess I'll give you, this is the easiest way to say, is that the things that he mentioned decades ago are being declassified now or discovered by science now. Like as early, like a big example of that would be him discussing in terms of him. I'll say this to give enough context. So he was brought in to try and, as a group of people, try and ascertain how extraterrestrial craft that they have operated, how it flew, how anything fucking worked. That was his thing, is to begin and try and just figure it out because nothing made any sense. And one of the theories that they went with was this whole thing that in order for this to really work and whatnot, gravity had to be a wave. And so they just, to my knowledge, just confirmed gravity was being a wave in the scientific community, like not
too long ago,
a couple years ago. And this was like in the 80s, early 90s, and this was out back then, right? So there, and it's not just a couple things. So many things that he's said have been declassified or confirmed by the scientific community here 10, 20, 30 years later, and it just like to the point where, and when you listen to him, you watch the podcast, he's the first person I've ever seen talk about this shit where I look at him and go, this guy's not fucking bullshitting me right now.
Yeah.
This is some shit that this guy actually lived. The government tried to erase him, tried to delete his birth certificate,
why don't they just kill him? It's the government.
Because he went straight to an investigative reporter, and they released that shit on national news live.
Oh, so then if he died, people would be like,
now it's obvious.
Yeah, now.
So they tried to discredit him. So they tried to remove where he went to school, for his degree, where he worked. They tried to get rid of his birth certificate.
Damn.
For a while, to just erase him from reality.
How scary would that be, though?
Wild, bro.
Like, why? But why would he do that? Why would he come out publicly about all this stuff and backstab? Not only his.
I can't remember if they said the specific reason.
Like, is he looking for fame, or is he just like one of these?
And he's never taken money of all the years he's ever done stuff, in which he's done very few interviews.
Yeah.
Because the experience when he did release it the first time, his whole life got fucked.
Of course. So like, you got to have some serious motive to do this.
Right. So like, he's obviously not in it for money or fame, because none of that happened, and his life got kind of fucked by doing it.
Like, it's something that you would do like on your deathbed. And
so that's just it. Is that in the podcast you listen to, he definitely has some more shit that he hasn't said, but he doesn't. And he says in the podcast, he's like, I'm trying to talk around some shit because I don't want more trouble that I've already had. So, here's the thing: if there are, even again, if you remove the extraterrestrial aspect from it, and let's just say it was a hotbed for, which it is to a degree, for testing top secret shit.
Yeah,
you have people that are basically being flown in to work there for days or hours at a time and flown out. They can't talk to anyone. They can't do anything. Their lives are fucking. You were a slave to that shit. You do that since the 40s. Somebody at some point is going to leak that shit.
It's the same thing.
It's the same tune.
Almost sounds like a subscription.
It sounds like
tune.
A subscription tune.
Yeah. I have nothing playing.
But there's nothing playing.
I know.
That's wacky, bro.
I'm going to do a full system restart after
this.
this.
That's fucking weird. So yeah, that was, so what made it interesting to me was that listening to him speak, he was the first person that I was like, this person isn't just fucking whacked out of their mind. Everything that he said, he He didn't look, body language wise, it didn't look like he was sitting there trying to make shit up on the fly. He didn't speak, he spoke very specifically only about his experience. So if Joe was like poking and prodding about something that like might have been there but was something that he didn't personally have hands on, he wouldn't go anywhere near it. He wouldn't talk about it. He only talked exactly, specifically about what he did during his time there, how he got caught. Just before the premiere or whatever of the documentary, he got raided by the FBI. So there is something he has said that is, or a few things that are obviously that are true enough.
Yeah.
Right? So, and so for me, he's the first person I've ever heard to talk about any of this shit where you go, okay, there might be some fucky shit going on here.
So what was he saying exactly? Like alien shit?
They had multiple.
Oh, multiple alien
like over like a dozen. And the US isn't the only ones that have it. There's a couple of governments in the world that have a couple. And they're not just apparently...
What about aliens, like physical beings?
He never spoke to any. He said, Joe obviously asked him about that. He said, I can't speak to that because I was there for one. He said he worked on one specific craft. When he was out around the base, from a distance, he saw a few others.
Did he ever explain? Did he describe what they look like?
They described roughly what some of them looked like, and they were all very different. But he said the thing is that it doesn't really matter what they necessarily look like or the shape of them, because at the end of the day, their best guess, they were forming their own gravitational fields. They were fucking with gravity. You fuck with gravity, you can do literally anything. You bend gravity, time doesn't really fucking matter anymore. So the very, very interesting.
I gotta listen to this.
Shit,
this
dude.
is crazy.
Yeah, and he's like down here the whole time. He's not up here excited, but he's down here, and he doesn't even want to really be there. He says multiple times, he's like, I didn't even want to do this interview. People come to his house.
See, that's the thing.
And like sit outside his house.
Yeah, that's the part that where I hear these people say shit like that. It's like, why would you ever come out and ruin your life like this? You know, you have a duty as a scientist or the top of your absolute field. I mean,
but he wasn't really. He was a dude that had done some crazy. He did some crazy shit in his garage. Government. His best guess is because Joe's like, why did they pick you? And he was doing some crazy shit in his garage with like like some sort of rocket shit, whatever the fuck. And he was an engineer or whatever, right? He did have legitimate science degree and whatever, but it wasn't like he was already working for the government in some super high end thing. It was like his best guess was, he said, they have a lot of different people trying to analyze this shit.
Yeah.
And it's like they want as many different types of minds,
of course,
to see it. So for him, he was somebody that thought outside the box, like the stuff that he was working on at home. So there was like they wanted somebody who didn't just think in the typical ones and zeros.
Yeah. You would think that the government would have some kind of clause, contract, something that like if you fucking say anything,
he did.
Your life is done.
Oh, they threatened him a bunch of times, and he said that when the thing went national on the news. So right before they put it on there, he was the guy, the investigative reporter. He was trying to wrestle the tape from the guy, but the guy was bigger. He fucking took the tape, ran it in. They played it on the news, and he got contacted not long after that. But he even knows the guy. I think he even mentions the guy's name because he was one of his contacts. And I think it was something along the lines of where he said you really fucked up this time, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then he never heard from him again, apparently. So at some point they went, well, he's too.
Well, it's like the thing is, the thing is, now it's on national news. If the guy goes disappearing, that's going to put it's going to look like we're covering up. So it's almost like you got to just go with it. But you would think like now he's still running his mouth, and on the biggest podcast on the planet, especially with all this Area 51 shit that's going on right now. It's like, dude, man. Don't you know when to know that you fucking hit the lottery and you still have your own life? You're dealing with the most top secret stuff that is.
So the way I look at it is, like I said, if they've been doing this like since the 40s or some time, right? And there's no small number of people that they would have brought through that program to like bring in and have them work and et cetera, et cetera. Eventually somebody's going to look at something like this. So let's assume that there is extraterrestrial craft there. Fuck
sure.
It, right? Okay. Yeah. So somebody's eventually going to look at that and go, the world needs to fucking know about this shit. This is there are only a handful of things. In fact, there's really only two things that a lot of people would really be wondering about. Or a few things, like one, why are we here? That's a common one. What the fuck are we here for? Two is what created all this bullshit? And three is, are we alone in the universe? That's like the trifecta of the big question marks.
Yeah.
Why are we here? Who created us? Are we alone? We're talking about a bunch of people going through a program where allegedly they're hitting number 3 here as we know the answer to this question, and we're low-key downplaying it and memeing it so that the public just goes along, at large, just goes along with it.
Yeah.
And doesn't take it seriously.
Yeah.
And we're reverse engineering and have been for like 60 years or some shit.
Does he say when? Does he ever mention? And I'll do this. I'll watch it. But
Yeah, for sure.
Does he ever mention like newer crafts, or are we talking like this only from the 80s? This is what we found, and that's it. Or has there been?
He didn't. I don't know if he gave like timelines for like when certain things were found. And again, he only talked like when he talked about really specifics, it was only ever about the one thing.
Why
that he
can't
gets
I'd be nice to see a picture, a video, a
So
snippet.
he drew some stuff on like the rough of the stuff that he had seen, specifically the one he worked on the most, and then and he describes it. What the
Who is
inside
this dude?
book-
What's his name again?
Bob Lazar, ALZAR.
I see it now.
So the one of the interesting thing was that he said was that
Oh yeah. No, this is the
Is
dude.
that the guy?
This is the dude. I do believe that I was watching on the podcast, and he was talking about working on some spheres.
I don't remember spheres, but
Yeah. There was the one that he was working on was more of a circle thing, and then there
maybe
was,
that's what you're getting
Then there
at.
was multiple ones in different hangars.
so
and
he saw different hangers, and there was one that looked like the traditional straw hat.
yes.
That was up on its side.
Yes.
And then a couple other
And he was
ones.
trying to reverse engineer sort of how it worked, but it worked in a way that we couldn't even really comprehend how it worked. And it was getting its own power from like itself. Like
so the fuel was apparently element. Oh shit! What is it? 115 or something like that.
I'm gonna have to watch.
I think
all
it's
this
one.
shit,
Yeah, I think it's element 115 is. But it was an element that we didn't have on the periodic chart yet. And it was powered on a stable isotope of this element. Okay. And when it was being used, it wasn't like radio. There was no like radioactive decay. There was no energy loss to heat. So when which is what fucked with everyone, because it breaks the laws of thermodynamics, which is when you're gonna get energy out, you're gonna lose some. Depending on how your energy is being created, you're going to lose a certain percentage of that to heat over
course.
time
Yeah.
until there is no more energy left.
until it's gone.
Right.
Yeah.
This was breaking that
Yeah.
by having this stable isotope of this element. Okay. Eventually, this element gets put on the fucking periodic charts. So
That's crazy.
He said he's assuming they haven't figured it out yet, but he knows that I'm pretty sure he was saying that he realizes that they were or have been trying to get a stable isotope of it. So every element has stable and unstable depending. And so I think the example he uses, like hydrogen has 2 unstable or whatever, or stable versions of, I can't remember what it was anyway.
I'm gonna have to go. I'm just gonna have to go watch this.
Tritium or
Yeah,
tritium and something else. So we have apparently with 115, we have lots of unstable, but none of them being stable isotopes, and that would be like the key to the fuel anyway. They don't know what the crafts were made of. All they know is that everything from basically the outside and the inside was the same material. Everything was the same material.
Damn.
And it was like a dark, like a pewter color. So something like close to, Amos Pewter.
And you watched this documentary too? You ended up watching, and that's on Netflix?
The documentary's pretty shit.
Is it?
There's a lot of good stuff in it. It's just really shit.
Yeah.
I mean, they
better off just listening to the Rogan podcast.
I would still watch it just because it might give you some more context to the podcast.
Yeah.
And it's not like super long, but I mean, for God's sakes, the motherfucker got Mickey Rourke to do the voiceover, and you can understand every fourth word coming in Mickey Rourke. Yeah.
Hey, me right.
And it's
drugs. I was in the wrestler.
It's a little bit here or there. So very, very interesting. Definitely watch it for sure. First, and like I said, one more time, this is the first person I've ever seen in that kind of that pocket that
actually seemed legit,
has some legitimacy. Because again, stuff that was just this was before the internet, long before any of this fuckery.
Yeah, it's either that or he's made some pretty crazy predictions.
Crazy predictions.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's what intrigued me about it was
dope.
Yeah.
I'm gonna check it out.
But the last thing that I'll say is the one that really got me that was very interesting that didn't even cross my mind was that apparently some of the craft that I don't know if it's the US have or it was Russia or something, I can't remember anyway. Archaeological dig. They came across them in archaeological digs. So crashed whatever that was underground and they came across them.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't like they were all just Roswell shit.
Yeah.
It just like crashed and they went over there and found it. It's like shit was just dug up. And then he talked about how people have over the years talked about seeing craft going in and out of the ocean. And he said, well, it doesn't matter because they're through our best estimate, if they're creating their own gravitational field around the craft, it doesn't matter if they're in space, underwater, anywhere. They can go deep as they want. They can go anywhere they fucking want to go because they're bending gravity around the ship. It just doesn't matter.
That's dope.
And that's also why you'll like the videos you'll see where it looks like fucking just darting everywhere.
Yeah,
it's because they're not affected by atmospheric conditions.
Yeah, bro. It's like having a fucking electric car with just, endless torque.
Yes,
and you can just ping, pound, boom all over the place.
That car still needs
still needs gravity.
It still has friction.
Yeah,
and gravity applied to it.
Yeah,
you take friction and gravity out of the equation, you're just fucking moving like nobody's business.
Like light.
Yeah,
faster than light.
So it's pretty fucking wild. It's very interesting stuff for sure. Watch the podcast. It's really quite something. Very interesting. Even if you're not like big into the alien shit, it's just the fact that so much of the stuff that he has said has become reality.
I'm checking it out.
Cool enough on its own.
You sold me on it, Adam.
There you go.
All right, let's get into tech support.
Yeah. That went longer than I thought. That went longer than I thought.
Gotta get some food before I hop back on.
Let me open
tech support. All this alien talk. Doodly.
Yeah, that Area 51 thing is freaking hilarious, though. That's some funny shit, bro.
I think it's fire.
It's just having all those people.
I'll definitely be tuning in on that day. I'll tell you that, and I'll be turning it off depending on how. If I start seeing people run, I'll be turning it off because I don't want to see.
I'll come back to this later.
Yeah.